Hello, thank you for being here. This is a 2-month update of my 185 Insane Challenge Writer's Edition, Changing My Life in 6 Months. This challenge was created originally by Jenna Streety, and I will link the original challenge explainer in the description. I have my dog Rosie down here keeping me company. The original spirit of the challenge was along the lines of, if I can give this much energy to a job for someone else, why don't I give that same energy to my own creation? I took a more relaxed approach for myself from the beginning, and this video will be going over where I've had successes, where I've had less success, changes I've made and may make as I go forward. I thought I would use a planner to schedule time frames and certain events on certain days, but right at the start, that wasn't happening. Worse, I do have a trend of planning out something and then not following that plan. So what I did was sort out which challenges asked for daily tasks such as meditation, which were weekly, such as hitting the 10-page revise or drafting goal, which ones were more bi-weekly or monthly, and then the ones that were other kind of one-off things like setting a publication date for Project A. I created a whiteboard chart so that I could track and check off completed tasks. This also lets me put percentages of sorts to how successfully I am reaching the 185 insane goals. The thing I discovered right away was just because I decided these changes were going to happen, it wasn't like going through a doorway and discovering a different habit of living. It's more like going down a long, same-looking corridor, and what I have to do is keep going and paint the walls and change the windows, remove the cobwebs, clean the baseboards. It's a silly metaphor, but it's also kind of accurate. The 6 months to change my life isn't one side and the other, it's changing habits and keeping up with them. Now, you may or may not know, my purpose in initially creating this channel was and is to talk about Tamara Pierce's novels and writing and world building. When I started this challenge at the beginning of August, challenge goal number 1 included my writing goal to complete a revision of my Project A. I figured this would take the month of August and maybe into September. Instead, a chunk of my daytime got unexpectedly absorbed in my wage work, and my remaining creative time went into the videos I made restructuring Tamara Pierce's Immortals series from a quartet into a trilogy. I don't think there's anything terrible about the original quartet, I just think it would be stronger as a trilogy with a 2 years aged up protagonist, and that was my premise. I thought it was something I would finish in about a week, and it ended up taking essentially all of August. While this was bad from a planning and intentions perspective, and it doesn't feel great that those videos have very few views, I was absolutely carried along by the momentum of the project, and I am glad I didn't give it up. The other side to that experience was now I know it's probably going to happen again. I have dozens of ideas for other videos about Tamara Pierce's books. Right now, I have 17 pages of notes just about Alana's brother, Tom. That's to do a video about him. But in the process of gathering those notes, I realized I can't properly talk about Tom without also talking about the villain of that series. Then I also want to do videos about Alana's 3 fathers and her 3 lovers, for which I can only assume the notes will be even more extensive. What this means is for challenge number 1 so far, I am at 0% because I restructured someone else's work and didn't revise my own. Challenge number 2, on the other hand, I picked up with in September as anticipated. This was not a hit the ground running success. As a daily goal to write just 2 draft pages, I'm at 30%. However, as a weekly goal to draft 10 pages for Project B, I reached 50% because some days I drafted more pages, which is part of what I'm aiming for. Challenge number 3, which was to submit at least 1 novelette from Project C to a potential publication, currently sits at 0% progress. A big part of the reason I have this goal is I somewhat assume I'm going to end up self-publishing, and I don't want my first time attempting the release process to be Project A. I'd rather mess up on the 40-page story and not the 300-page book. Challenge number 4 is also currently at 0%, but this is one of the few goals that can still end up at 100%. I just have to pick author events and make a plan and show up on the day. Now, challenge number 5 has shifted. The goal was to post to social media of some kind 3 to 4 times per week, including a once weekly upload to YouTube. And wrapped in that goal was the necessity of exploring other social media platforms. My exploration has been minimal, although not 0%. Once weekly to YouTube after I completed the Immortals project fell off, and I'm not sure I'm going to hold myself to that as a discipline. I want to post weekly, but I don't want to push myself like I did in July and August. I do want to grow this channel, but I would rather put more of my energy into finishing Project A and Project B. Right now I have this video, and the one about Tom, and one about Project B. And then we will just have to see what November brings as far as uploading once a week to YouTube. As a daily goal, posting one time, my success was 27%, but as a weekly goal, it sits at 13%. Going forward, I have reduced the weekly goal to 2 to 3 times per week posting to social media, but there is a little twist here. I recently signed a contract to create social media posts for someone else. Because it's for someone else, I am completely confident in my ability to follow through. My goal, or my hope, is to use that time where I'm already sitting down to do their work to also make progress on this goal. Challenge number 6, I said, was going to require some experimentation, and that is fully true here. I said I would schedule content and creation related goals for earlier in the week and creation and personal goals toward the latter part of the week. Essentially, I'm scrapping that imposition of X task in X time frame. This goal instead is to actively monitor myself as I work on all these goals, which is something I've sort of already been doing as a result of this 185 Insane Challenge. Things like, what are the actual best times of the day to fit in certain tasks? Where else does reading fit in besides before bed? Do I work better in waves or cycles where I spend 3 weeks drafting, 2 weeks recording and editing videos, every couple of days spending 3 or 4 hours making content? Where does my energy dip too low to check off any tasks, and can I determine why that is? That is the modification to this challenge. A success percentage doesn't exactly apply here. Challenge number 7, reaching out to friends and family just to catch up. This is the only goal sitting at 100%, and that is probably in part because it was set as a bi-weekly or once a month goal. Challenge number 8, the goal here was to stretch 2 times per day, and this is one of my bigger successes at 58%. Within this challenge, I actually completed a 30-day yoga challenge in the month of September, and this is a BFD for me. I've mentioned more than once I'm bad at planning and follow through. If I have ever completed a 30-day physical challenge before in my life, I don't remember it. But the 2-time daily meditation goal is as close to 0 as makes no difference. It's 4%. I'm changing this goal after next week. I'll talk more about this part when we get to challenge number 15. Challenge number 9, this is the only one I'm a little embarrassed about I have made minimal movement on. This is to create a disaster preparedness kit or more than one. I have in my head the items I need to put together, but the only thing I've actually put aside to go into a designated bag or box is a permanent marker, and I have got to fix that. Challenge number 10 was a catch-all of too many ideas. There was no clear way this goal could be successful. What I set up on my whiteboard was a number 10 miscellaneous line under weekly, monthly, and other, with a verb attached to each. Learn, plan, try. The weekly number 10 learn line has been updated to catch the draw goal that was under challenge number 15. And I'll talk more about that when I get to number 15. The monthly number 10 plan line does remain, both sit at 0%. Number 10 try under the other section does get 1 check mark. I made a derpy tiger cake from K-pop Demon Hunters. It took like 10 hours, but I'm not going to pretend I wasn't pleased with it. I'm mentioning it here to say I made a derpy tiger cake from K-pop Demon Hunters. Challenge number 11, to aim for a writer's retreat in November. We haven't reached November yet. It's very unlikely that this will happen at this moment in time. When I set this goal, I did say it would be for if nothing too precarious happens financially in the next little while, and without getting into detail, I have had a disruption in my finances. A writer's retreat is still on the chart. It just might have to happen later on in the challenge. Challenge number 12 was to limit my time watching videos on YouTube. I feel like this seems counterintuitive within the project of building a channel myself, but I definitely had myself locked into a habit of putting on YouTube if I wasn't doing something that required my full attention. While I have broken the habit of just putting it on, the building of boundaries is still ongoing. YouTube is a place to learn things, it's a place to be entertained, and YouTube makes itself as easy as possible. The limit I set was 5 hours or less a day, and one of the ways I enforced that is using the screen timer app and setting it to 4 hours. This is working, I think, as my success with this daily goal or limit is at 68%. I feel I should acknowledge that a factor in that, though, is that it's the season of the Great British Bake Off, and I will put that on in the background and I can write without getting distracted by it, which is not true for things I would choose to watch from YouTube. The real test will come in January after the holiday Bake Off, and that's when I go from watching the past seasons on loop to being sick of them for the next 6 months. Challenge number 13 was reading 30 minutes of Tamara Pierce 4 to 5 times a week and reading 30 minutes of other than Tamara Pierce 3 to 4 times a week. As a daily goal, I have 41% success keeping up on Tamara Pierce, 30% success on non-Tamara Pierce reading. As a weekly goal, they match with the to be improved 37%. The 2 non-Tamara Pierce books I've read were Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer, which I do highly recommend to the total of 3 people who probably haven't read that book yet. And the other one was Lolita, which I can... Good timing, dog. Which I can only recommend very cautiously. The writing itself is an excellent showcase of Nabokov's story building skill and command of language, but it may also make you want to peel your skin off. I read Lolita once more than a decade ago, so does that count as a reread? I read it either way because Project A shares some traits with it. Of Tamara Pierce's books, I read The Song of the Lioness Quartet and Tortall, A Spy's Guide. If you like world-building writing, Tortall, A Spy's Guide would probably be a fun read for you. I feel like I am rereading the Lioness Quartet after I've flipped through every single page from my Tom notes, and basically I will be doing that twice more for the other 2 video ideas, but I don't include those toward the 30-minute goal. Challenge number 14 was the goal to set and keep regular wake up and go to sleep times, to establish morning and evening routines that go along with that, and to read more before sleep. I have sporadically done my reading before sleep these past couple months, so it's better than before, but not anything like a habit. An evening routine exists more as an intention than as any true habit. 13% success at this point. A morning routine, though, surprisingly to me, has proven more consistent, heavily assisted by the inclusion of the first stretch of the day, so it's at 55% success currently. And finally, challenge number 15. This was set by Jenna Streety as picking a new hobby that brings you joy that you will not monetize. For reasons I explained in my first video, I set myself 3 hobbies to establish as habits: making recycled paper weekly or bi-weekly and making journals out of them monthly or so, learning to draw, especially the characters I'm writing, and to learn macrame. This is all the paper I've made so far. In week 7, I moved this goal from the weekly section of the chart to the bi-weekly monthly section. In week 7, I also moved drawing from the monthly to the weekly section, replacing number 10, learn. I'm hoping to sort of bully myself more into prioritizing that intention by moving it up. I have nothing to show for it at this point. Learning to make macrame was the truest goal to the spirit of this particular challenge, but the only movement I've made on this, it was to read all the way through the article that inspired me to pick macrame in the first place and save for later the tutorial videos that it included. In week 7, I replaced the number 10 try goal with the macrame goal. The challenge number 15 goal has evolved to include a new hobby, or to be most honest, the rediscovery of an old one. I played trumpet for 9 years in school and only randomly in the years since. In week 7, I started humming some of the orchestral music from The Lord of the Rings. I think it was the Edoras theme. And I just pulled out my trumpet and I pulled out the sheet music from Howard Shore for those films. I have no problem remembering how to play, but I no longer had the strength here to hit anything above a D note on a C scale. But I had the experience of joy when I tried to play. I laughed when I could only crack the E and the F and forget even trying the G note. But I'm already getting better, and I can hit and hold an E note and an F, although this G is still one to work toward. I replaced the weekly paper making line with trumpet practice. But if I practice 4 or 5 times this week and again next week, Then in week 11, I will move trumpet practice from the weekly to the daily section, replacing the meditation line. As it sits under weekly, I am at 250% success with trumpet practice, and that kind of throws off the overall percentage. The great irony of this goal is when I was in school, you would never catch me practicing for 10 minutes by myself voluntarily. I liked being in the band. I liked playing with the orchestra. I had no interest in playing by myself in my room. My goal is to be able to play all the way through the Lord of the Rings sheet music that I have by the end of this 185 Insane Challenge. And that's it. That's the 2-month update. My overall success rate is currently 34%. With a concentration in drafting Project B and maintaining a stretching routine. 100% success overall was never possible. If it was, then I think that would have meant I set challenge goals that only reflected what I was already doing in life. And that is not the point of 185 Insane. Having said that, I am aiming to reach 50% success overall when it's time for the 4-month update. Subscribe, like, or drop a comment if you feel you want to. I thank you for your time, and I will see you in the next one.